Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second meeting of the House Standing Committee on Economic Development and Workforce Investment. Quick reminder to everyone just in the audience, please silence your cell phones. If you're interested in testifying, we have the sign-up sheet right here. As a reminder, no signs, no vocal outbursts in the audience clapping. We want the members to be focused on the items at hand here today. Members, if you have a question, please let Sasha know. Is there any member here today who has a guest that they would like to recognize? Representative Lawrence?
I would like to recognize my son that came up with me today. He is excused from school, so he was definitely down to come to these meetings. Thank you, guys.
And woke up early to do it. Any other member? All right, Sasha, please call the roll.
Representative Baker. Representative Bauman.
Present.
Representative Bratcher.
Here.
Representative Callaway.
Present.
Representative Camuel. Representative Duval.
Here.
Representative Elliott. Representative Gentry.
Here.
Representative Jackson.
Present.
Representative King.
Present.
Representative Cole-Carney.
Present.
Representative Lawrence.
Present.
Representative Lockett.
Present.
Representative Pratt. Present. Representative Sharp. Representative Tackett-Lafferty.
Present.
Representative Truitt. Here. Representative Huff.
Here.
Chairman Branscombe.
Here. We do have a quorum and are duly constituted to do business. First on the agenda today will be House Bill 7. Representative Josh Bray. Members, we do have a number of members who have 9 o'clock committees. They also have bills that they are presenting in committees after this. On House Bill 7, we will do 20 minutes for those in favor of the bill, 20 minutes for those in opposition, and then that'll allow us time to ask questions. So with that, Representative Bray, if you could, state your name and have your guests introduce themselves. I'd ask please make sure that your green lights on the microphones are lit. That way we can hear you. And after you introduce yourselves, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh Bray, House District 71. If you want to.
Good morning, Jeff Farah, CEO of the Autonomous Vehicle Industry Association.
Good morning, Josh Fisher, Senior Director at the Alliance for Automotive Innovation.
So today we'll be discussing House Bill 7. This was passed last year as House Bill 135. Passed it out of the House, passed it out of the Senate. Actually passed it out of the Senate on the last day. The governor vetoed it. We didn't have time to override that veto. So it's come back this year as House Bill 7. There is a committee sub, but I would like to go through the bill before we discuss the sub, just so that we can refamiliarize the members with the issue. So House Bill 7 creates the regulatory framework for the Department of Transportation to allow autonomous vehicles to operate in Kentucky. These vehicles, first let me say, these are not Teslas. You know, anytime we hear of driverless technology, people just assume we're talking about Teslas. These are not Teslas. Don't really like the technology that Teslas have. So, you know, if you've seen videos of them doing wonky things, these do not qualify. These are highly, highly, highly regulated vehicles through the National Transportation Safety Board. They have to meet certain specifications, same way that airplanes have to meet certain specifications. So, having said all that, I'd like to turn it over to my guest.
Chair Branscombe, members of the committee, my name is Jeff Farah. As I said, I'm the CEO of the Autonomous Vehicle Industry Association. I appreciate the opportunity today. I want to thank Representative Bray for his leadership on HB 7. AVIA is the unified voice of the AV industry. Our members include the world's leading technology, trucking, ride-sharing, automotive, and transportation companies, and are operating across the country. We are committed to bringing the tremendous safety, mobility, and economic benefits of AVs in a safe, responsible, and timely manner, and our members are excited to bring their operations to Kentucky. The automation of driving has been an aspiration for decades, and for many years, many questioned when autonomous vehicles would be on our roads. Today, we can proudly answer that they are here now, with applications ranging from autonomous ride-hailing and trucking to delivery vehicles and shuttles, operating in states such as Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Louisiana, Michigan, and Texas. The ongoing deployment of AVs is demonstrating how the adoption of autonomous vehicles will benefit the public in many ways. Of paramount importance is the ability of AVs to make us all safer. AVs do not speed, they do not text, they do not drive impaired or fatigued. Sadly, human drivers do all of those things, contributing to nearly 43,000 American deaths on our roads in 2022, according to federal government statistics. That is roughly equivalent to a plane crash every day in our country. Kentucky alone saw 807 traffic fatalities in 2023. To put that in context, that's the equivalent to losing the entire city of McKee annually, Representative Truitt. The U.S. Department of Transportation has reaffirmed what we have long known. Human behavior is a contributing factor in the overwhelming majority of crashes, including impaired, distracted, and reckless driving. AVs are positioned to combat this trend of unsafe driving that has persisted for many years. They have unparalleled visibility of the world around them as a result of advanced technology that works in concert to form the automated driving system, which is the brain that drives the vehicle. The combination of these systems lends to quicker decisions with many more inputs than a human driver. AVs also have a 360-degree field of vision, which can detect, track, and react to objects and people even when they are hidden from human perception due to vehicles and other obstructions. I have been a passenger in many autonomous vehicles, and it is awe-inspiring to see this American technology navigate their surroundings. But don't just take it from me. AVs have built a significant safety record through more than a dozen years of development and deployment, and vehicles operated by AVIA members have driven more than 44 million autonomous miles on U.S. public roads alone. That's equivalent to 187 trips to the moon. This safety record is supported by data collected by the federal government, which requires AV companies to report incidents, no matter how minor or who caused the incident, that occur while the ADS is engaged. Furthermore, as the industry reaches miles-driven milestones, companies are releasing compelling safety studies to show how the vehicles are making roads safer. In addition to bringing safety benefits, authorizing AV deployment will drive new jobs to Kentucky. Today, the industry is providing opportunities for workers with an array of expertise and educational backgrounds, including many jobs that do not require a college degree. For instance, in many states, AV developers and manufacturers are hiring auto technicians, fleet managers, safety operations specialists, and many others to support their operations. It is important to underscore that autonomous trucks and America's truck drivers will thrive and coexist together. Federal government data shows us that our country needs to move 50% more freight by 2050. At the same time, there is a nationwide truck driver shortage of nearly 80,000 that is set to double by 2031. We have to find a way to move more freight with fewer people to do it. Otherwise, we are failing our nation's farmers, manufacturers, and small business owners. Autonomous trucks are one of the potential solutions for our country. AVs offer great opportunities, but a framework that allows for the driverless deployment of the technology is necessary to realize these benefits. 23 states have laws that expressly authorize AV deployment, including several states surrounding Kentucky. None of these states require a human observer in the vehicle. In fact, states as politically diverse as California, Texas, and everywhere in between have rejected this counterproductive idea. The technology is here and in use today, and if Kentucky does not act now, it risks being left behind as the technology is deployed. For instance, autonomous trucks are establishing routes from places like Texas and Louisiana, and while Kentucky is well positioned from a geographic and industrial perspective to be a part of such routes, they may bypass Kentucky if such a legislative framework for AVs is not enacted. The reality is that AV companies cannot make capital investments in the state unless AV legislation is passed. Thank you for your time today and support for HB 7.
There we go. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Josh Fisher. I'm with the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. I'd like to start by thanking Representative Bray for carrying this legislation this year. We are a trade association that represents the automakers producing the most vehicles sold in the U.S. each year. We also represent AV developers, battery producers, equipment suppliers, and semiconductor makers. Our members, including GM, Ford, Toyota, and Magna, directly employ tens of thousands of Kentucky residents and have invested billions of dollars in this state. They are committed to Kentucky, and we want to make sure that Kentucky puts the right policies in place to support the development of AV technology. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to share our position on House Bill 7. We think House Bill 7 creates the proper framework for the regulation of AVs and removes the uncertainty about how Kentucky will regulate the technology. So the cars and trucks that Americans are driving today are the safest vehicles ever produced. And as Jeff said, traffic fatalities continue to increase, over 42,000 fatalities on American roads in 2022. And recently, a National Safety Council report identified Kentucky as a state that has one of the biggest increases in traffic fatalities from 2022 to 2023. So we really think AV technology holds the promise to reduce these fatalities over time. So the evidence shows that driver behavior, drivers who are impaired, unbelted, speeding, driving recklessly, are significant factors in roadway fatalities. That's why vehicle safety is a priority for our members, and automated vehicle technology holds the promise to increase safety and reduce these fatalities. Now, we reduced a report a little over a year ago that surveyed the landscape of existing AV projects in the U.S. We found a robust and growing AV environment. At the time the report was released, there were over 80 AV companies working in 30 states. And between those companies, there were nearly 170 different AV-related programs in 120 different cities. Now, that's not to say AV technology is everywhere yet. Unleashing the full potential of AVs will depend on the ability of companies to ramp up the number of AVs on the road. This will reduce costs and increase public confidence in the technology. However, government policy must also create a clear pathway for AV deployment. So one of the biggest obstacles to achieving that type of scale needed is government. Autonomous driving has the attention of Washington, D.C. and the states, and rightly so, because government does have a role to play here. Autonomous driving, on top of the obvious safety benefits, AVs can provide accessible transportation options for seniors and individuals with disabilities, and a chance to reduce traffic congestion and create new jobs and supply chains. Frameworks like House Bill 7 provide a level of certainty to developers and automakers and maintain the proper role of the states and the federal government in regulating vehicle technology. Innovative technologies that can make a difference have already been developed or are well on their way to being commercially available. The right policies need to be in place to support the continued development of AV technology. House Bill 7 provides certainty to developers and automakers, and we encourage the committee to move the bill. Thank you.
So within the bill, it does a few things. So it ensures that vehicles must comply with all applicable traffic and safety laws. It requires that the vehicle meets or exceeds all federal motor vehicle safety standards. Make sure that if for some reason the vehicle has a system failure or cannot fully perform its task, that it must be able to pull itself off the road and achieve a minimum risk condition, which is exactly what we would do if you had a human behind the wheel. Other requirements in the bill, before the AV is on the street, the company must submit a law enforcement interaction plan to both the Transportation Cabinet and the state police so that law enforcement knows what to do in case they need to engage with the autonomous vehicle. Last year, there was a floor amendment filed by Representative Flannery that addressed some of the concerns from the Trial Attorneys Association. That is incorporated in this bill. It maintains that the liability insurance requirements are at $1 million and that vehicles must maintain up-to-date title and registration.
Motion on the committee sub.
Let me get to the committee sub there. All right, in the committee sub, there were 3 changes. On page 2, line 21, the committee sub added 2 words that says "as needed" to the end of the sentence. And all this does is it makes sure that the definitions in the 2018 Society for Automotive Engineers document matches with this going forward so that there doesn't have to be cleanup language every time there's a definition changed. On page 3, line 14 through 18, we put a requirement in that that there would have to be a driver in a semi-truck for 2 years. So, that was one of the issues raised last session. People were worried, concerned about the safety in semis, so we put that in there. And then on page 5, line 3, the change simply adds "achieve a minimum risk condition" for lower class vehicles, like if you had driver assist technology where there's These aren't fully automated vehicles, so that you've got somebody already behind the wheel. It just allows it to retrieve a minimum risk condition, or it reverts to the human driver. So those are the changes on the committee sub.
We have a motion on proposed House Sub 2 to House Bill 7. Do we have a second? And a second, Representative Bratcher. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? House Sub 2 to House Bill 7 passes. Representative Bray, anything further?
No, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Representative Ballman.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Bray, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. I deeply appreciate you bringing this forward and also working with the opposition to this to make this as effective as possible for Kentuckians across the Commonwealth. I do have a question, probably better suited for one of your guests, actually. And when we consider the tens of thousands of truck drivers that we are short in that enormous gap, I wonder if you have any, data or studies that have been done as the impact on consumers in delivering goods to market. Do you have any data or impact studies that show the impact for the consumer?
I'll let them speak, but I think we all kind of remember 2020 when everything was shut down and you couldn't get goods across the country because we didn't have people on the roads, we didn't have people stocking in stores. And so right now, because I looked at this data because I wanted to make sure we had up-to-date information, right? Last year we were short 80,000 truck drivers. I pulled the data to make sure nothing had changed. We're still short 80,000 truck drivers. And by 2030, that's projected to get up to 160,000. And I believe the average age of a truck driver right now is 58 years old. And I don't think we're filling those as quickly as people are exiting the job market, especially since the federal government's made it so difficult to get a CDL. Used to you could just kind of go take a test and a written test and then the driver test and all of that. And now, it's got to be through a school and so we're not making it easier to have CDLs. I don't see how this necessarily gets better, but I just know firsthand what's happened whenever logistically we couldn't move freight across the country and what that had done to housing prices, building prices, goods prices, all of that.
I think those are excellent points. I would just briefly make a couple of follow-up points. The first is that we'd be happy to share at the committee there's a U.S. Department of Transportation sponsored study that talks about the overall economic impact of autonomous trucking that I think gets to a lot of the points. The second one is that if you look across our membership, there are a lot of commercial partnerships that are being inked right now. And a lot of these are with logistics companies and trucking companies, manufacturers, small, medium, and large. All of those companies are trying to find a way to better move products to support their customers and get them to consumers faster in a more reliable way. So this is a very important time right now, which really speaks to the urgency for HB 7.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate your answer. I think it just highlights the fact that we are not going to eliminate any jobs for truck drivers, and we're going to support the consumer by getting those goods to market. Thank you.
And that's exactly right. Listen, this technology cannot replace in all facets human drivers. They will work in concert. I mean, it's like artificial intelligence, right? That's one of the big concerns with it, that it's going to eliminate the need for human workers. And that's just not the case. It expands the economy, expands opportunity.
Representative Cole Carney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one technical question and two substantive questions, if that's okay. I'll be quick. The first one, Representative Bray, I know you mentioned one of the changes in the sub was on page 2, and I just missed what you said. I think it was line 18, and you said something was as needed, and I just didn't see that language.
Oh, it's as amended.
As amended, okay.
I apologize.
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure I had that right. And then my other question has to do with, the safety aspect of it. I understand that, this is the future of everything and people have mixed opinions. I appreciate the use of this technology for seniors, for individuals with disabilities. So conceptually, I'm not opposed to it. I do have some safety concerns, and I brought this up last session as well. And I'll use myself as an example. So I have a hybrid, and it has various, increasingly every iteration has more and more like things where you don't, it brakes for you. It has lane tracking technology. There's a lot of different automated factors that are included in it. Now, I was just driving here this morning, and there's all kinds of construction on 64. It was not able to understand the lane shifts as quickly as they were occurring because of I'm assuming it's the cameras. You mentioned there was 360 degrees, but the paint wasn't necessarily consistent. Whatever the reasoning is, it was not able to recognize that. My concern, of course, being in work zones or in situations where there's construction, how is that going to be prevented? How are accidents going to be prevented? How is this different from assistive technology that exists already?
So as far as the assistive technology, it's kind of like so within the autonomous vehicles, you've got radar, LiDAR, thermal, cameras. They all use various degrees of this. Like in your lane assist, chances are it is only camera technology. They also geofence these routes, so like they are GPS programmed in. It's so much more advanced and acclimated to the autonomy of it. Like your lane assist is designed to only assist you. It requires a human behind the wheel. You have to have your hands on the wheel, all of that. Do you want to speak about some of the technology?
Thank you for the question. First of all, I think it's an excellent answer. I think what I would add to this is that when you think about the state of the art with level 4 and level 5 technology, which is really the core of what this bill is speaking to, at level 4, which is really the state of the technology now, what we're talking about is that the vehicles are confined to what we call an operational design domain. And so the ODD is really a set of limiting circumstances meant to make sure they are safely able to execute within their area. That could be a geofenced area, as Representative Bray mentioned. It could be certain restrictions on times of day or on weather and whatnot. This is something to make sure that they can execute properly. And so what happens when a vehicle goes into a specific area is there's extensive mapping of that area meant to figure out where all the different areas it needs to react to are. In addition to that, because of the suite of sensors and technology that Representative Bray is talking about, it's also able to react to changing circumstances. So if you do have a work site, you do have something that perhaps wasn't there when it was originally mapped, it's able to figure that out. And so it's far more advanced, I think, than some of the technology that you see at lower levels of automation.
Okay, thank you. My second question, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay, has to
do... Very quickly, we have 5 others.
Very quickly, I apologize. Yeah. There are, I think, about 15.5 million individuals currently involved in trucking and that kind of work. How will this technology or this legislation specifically affect them or potentially displace them?
Yeah. As I mentioned in my opening statement, we strongly believe that our country, we need truck drivers. Our industry hires many truck drivers, CDLs. We believe that we are going to coexist autonomous trucking and truck drivers. This is something where we have to figure out a way to move more freight with less people. We think we're part of the solution there. And so we don't envision a world where this is impacted. And there's a variety of scenarios that some of our members have kind of talked about publicly, which I'm happy to follow up about how it is they think that they can feed into the overall transportation ecosystem.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation this morning. And you've touched on it briefly, but this comes from a constituent back home and a friend of mine. He's a career UPS driver, and his concern is that this is going to affect them in a negative way. Would this, in your opinion, would this affect UPS drivers? I know they have some tractor-trailer drivers, but they have mainly box truck drivers that deliver to the home. So any insight on how this might affect my friend back home?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. The technology is not there to where they can transform and deliver the package as well. there will have to be a human to do that. And I don't see a scenario where we can get to the point where the technology can deliver, can pick the package, get it to the house, and all of that. There has to be a human to do that.
I would just second that and say that what we see is that we can augment the human truck drivers and make sure that we can really help to drive efficiencies and help with consumers. We don't see a world in which there is replacement. This is about coexistence.
Representative Callaway.
Yes, thank you for bringing this. As always, when we discuss bills, we get other things brought to light, so I appreciate you highlighting the fact that the federal government needs to do something in regard to our CDL drivers, and definitely would urge them to do that, and I think we have done that as a body. Couple things. One is just some of the language in here, just concerned to make sure that we are collaborating with local governments, because of this affects rural versus urban areas so differently. And I know there's some language that kind of divides out who can do what, but just interested that we continue to collaborate on a local level with these local governments, even though we're making this a state issue. The second thing, maybe you can touch on a little bit, the technology with this. There's, cameras all around this vehicle that interact with this technology. So I'm just wondering, how can those cameras be used? Are they recording? Privacy issues with that? Could they be used in the event of a crash? And making sure that we're looking at that from a privacy issue. What happens if that is recorded? What is able to happen with those videos?
Thank you for the question, Representative. It's a very good one. So working with local governments, I think, in my testimony, I touched on all the different projects around the country, and we've seen a lot of interaction between the developers and local officials. I think that will continue apace. So certainly understand your point about working with local representatives. When it comes to the technology, I'll start by saying our members have enacted almost a decade ago a set of privacy principles that dictate how private consumers' data is protected by our members. In terms of crash investigations, our members will continue to, pending a valid subpoena and warrant, work with law enforcement in crash investigations to share that type of data. So I'd imagine that would continue apace as well.
Representative Baker. Okay. Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Chairman. My question was answered, but I do want to make a statement. Whether you're for or against this legislation, at the end of the day, our federal government, as Representative Bray said earlier, has made it virtually impossible for folks to get their CDLs. I've got folks in my district that want to get their CDLs. They're my age. In fact, I even thought about it, but because I have to go to school and we clearly don't have time to do that, it makes it very difficult for folks to get their CDLs. So at the end of the day, we are trying to solve a problem that we created. Thank you. Well, not we, the federal government.
Representative Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to go as quick as I can. I know we always have time issues in here on these things, but guys, thank you for being in here. I know we're going in this direction with technology. It's just the way it is. I remember being in transportation cabinet, our transportation committee a few years ago, and we were actually talking about this then. So I think what everybody's afraid of is the transition period, and you can't sit here and tell me that automation's not going to take over human labor eventually, because I think it does. I've seen a long history of that in my lifetime. The question is, how quick does it happen? The other question is, what's that transition process look like? And my question to you, I think you said something about you guys are in a few states already operating. And if so, can you repeat again what those states are, and what kind of challenges are you guys seeing early on? I know technologies are never perfect when we get started, and over time we get better and better. It's just human nature. Can you talk to us a little bit about the challenges that you're seeing in some of these other states and what states they are?
Thank you very much for the question. I believe what you're referencing is in my opening statement, I talked about the fact that 23 states have a AV statute that is similar to HB 7. And so there are AV operations that are going on in a number of those states. There are several that have tended to be early leaders, and many of them are nearby Kentucky, which I think really speaks to the overall economic opportunity. I think just from an industry perspective, what's important to understand here is that while all of our members are pursuing autonomous driving systems, the application of that tends to be quite diverse. It can be in passenger cars, it can be in ride hail, it can be in shuttles, it can be in zero occupancy delivery, it can be in trucks. And so each of those types of companies, they're working through issues. And one of the things that's very core to all the companies and their objectives is a high degree of local engagement. The companies come in, they meet with city councils, with mayors, with county officials, with law enforcement. They're engaged in mapping, they're doing community relations, they're trying to explain what it is that they're trying to do to fit into the overall transportation fabric. So that is something that's very much part and parcel of the industry. It's something that we're committed to.
Okay, you had said that.
Very briefly,
Okay,
please.
you had mentioned a couple of states, if I remember, Arkansas, Louisiana, Florida, Texas, southern states. In winter areas where because we're dealing with sensors, ice, snow, slush, that sort of stuff, is that a bigger challenge, and what about computers, hacking computers, stuff like that we see nowadays that freak us all out? Can you comment about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll briefly mention that obviously there are autonomous vehicle applications going on in diverse climates. Michigan is one example. San Francisco, I think people, even though it's California, the weather is not always great, and so you have to deal with that. That's a technological challenge that our industry is focused on meeting.
And Representative Gentry, I've got a map here that I'll be happy to hand you as soon as we're done that shows everywhere all the different laws the states have.
Representative, if you don't care, just distribute that to all the members.
Will do.
Thank you. Representative Camuel.
Hi, thank you. And also, I'd like to record my attendance, please. Thank you all for the information and trying to push this bill forward and really introduce new driverless technology to Kentucky. But I've got a couple of questions, and I will make them brief. We recently passed a bill out of transportation regarding work zone safety, trying to limit accidents, deaths, injuries to workers in work zones. Can these vehicles detect when a worker is present in a work zone? I understand that they're mapped and geofenced and whatnot, but is that something that they have the capability to do?
Yes, they absolutely can.
Okay, thank you. And then I've got one other question. Actually, it's two. One, do other states have requirements for human drivers to be present in the vehicles? Are those in the other state statutes?
Of the 23 states that I mentioned, no other state that's passed an AV statute has required a human observer.
Okay, thank you. And the last one is, in the event of an accident, if it is a driverless vehicle, how do police interview and interact? Like, how do they determine cause, and then how does a judge? Like, have police weighed in on this and law enforcement?
Yeah, I think that we found in many states that law enforcement tends to be very supportive of the technology. I think the first thing is within the bill, there is a requirement to submit a law enforcement engagement interaction plan that lets law enforcement know how they can engage with the vehicle, if they need to do a pullover, if there's some kind of a crash. I think in terms of the question of liability, we very much see the industry fitting into how it is that transportation and liability have been going in this country for decades. And so there are situations where you need to find fault, and sometimes it's the fault of the driver, sometimes it's the fault of the vehicle. That's something that goes on now, it will go on in the future.
Thank you.
Representative Tackett Lafferty.
Thank you. Of course, just like a lot of things, I know some things are moving in a direction, but it doesn't mean that we always need to rush into that. This is very concerning for me. Mr. Chair, I'll try to be very brief. I do have quite a few questions, though. First of all...
Representative, let's keep it to 2 questions, okay?
Oh, goodness.
Pick your best 2.
Okay. All right, I can lump these 2 together. So here we go. So last year I was highly opposed to this bill. So last year I was opposed to this bill because we talked about the difficulty. Of course, we all know I live in Eastern Kentucky. We have loaded coal trucks traveling our 2-lane roads. They talked last year about how difficult it is for these cameras once they're covered in coal dust and roadway sludge to be able to discern the the line in the middle of the roadway. And our Eastern Kentucky families, we travel these roadways alongside these loaded coal trucks, and so that was a big concern to me last year because it was driverless. I do appreciate that there was a driver added for the first 2 years. I understand. Now I won't ask you this question since I'm limited, but I'm not quite sure why in 2 years. I'm not sure if we're just hoping that the technology will be better in 2 years, that it won't be a danger to our drivers in Eastern Kentucky when we, I'm not sure what's changing in 2 years, why we're placing that there. But in talking about big loaded trucks in our area, this is my first question.
Now we're to it. All right.
Recently in my district, I just spoke with my transportation department because we have a roadway that when these large trucks come through, their GPS sends them across a small mountain roadway, which I suppose may be the shortest or fastest route, but it becomes a 1-lane road with no lines. So often on this roadway, you have 2 large trucks that meet in the middle, and there's no way for them to basically get out of the situation. So my transportation department recently contacted me to let me know that they have put signs on both sides of this small roadway, because it happens so often, to indicate to drivers, do not follow your GPS across this roadway, small lanes ahead. Now, will this type of technology be capable of recognizing problems like that?
Yeah. So the routes would already be mapped. Let's say that a coal company decided to use the technology. I don't think that would ever happen, but let's say they did. That would already be GPS. They would send drivers out to map the boundaries of the road, to map all of that. And these issues would be dealt with before they're ever implemented for use. And as far as putting drivers in the big trucks for 2 years, what the thinking was behind that, as the technology rolls out, we know this isn't going to be the only bill that's ever filed on autonomous vehicle stuff. This is going to have to be updated. As a matter of fact, Chairman Blanton has a task force bill so that we can study this as it's implemented in Kentucky. The thinking is most of the safety concerns from members has been around the semis. We wanted to make sure that there was somebody in there as it's rolled out to reassure the public that they're safe.
Okay, thank you. And another concern related to my district, in addition to the loaded coal trucks, I have places in my district like Pepsi, Frito-Lay, Kellogg's Pop-Tarts, that they have workers. Recently, I just paid a visit to Pepsi, who has over 100 truck drivers in their fleet in my district alone. So I know this probably wouldn't apply, the language that puts the drivers in the vehicles for 2 years probably wouldn't apply to those types of small trucks.
It depends on how heavy they are.
Okay. So this legislation may not protect those type of truck drivers to help keep their jobs?
I don't see that this is going to take their jobs. Like your Pepsi, Frito-Lay, the drivers you're talking about, they're delivery drivers. Mm-hmm. They, correct me if I'm wrong, they go to stores, they unload their materials, they stock the shelves. This isn't going to replace that. It's not designed to replace that. The applications that we're seeing are, I think, and he can speak better to it than I am, but like there are routes from Texas to Florida just moving material. That's it. It's not the delivery, the stocking, that's not really where I think this is going.
I guess my only concern is that if we take the drivers out of those types of vehicles, will the stores just basically begin unloading the trucks and and stocking their own shelves? Are we creating a relationship there that may also cause some trouble between the deliverer and the consumer? But I guess those are I'm limited
Thank
to
you.
two, so thank you, fellas.
Representative Sharp, very briefly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a pilot, and I'm flying using GPS navigation, there's periodic times when the GPS is not available. It goes out, whether it's through solar flares or whatever. My question is, what backup navigation systems are going to be in place in case that happens for these vehicles?
Thank you very much for the question. I think a couple of points come to mind. The first is Representative Bray talked about this safety feature that we refer to as a minimal risk condition. Essentially what this is a fallback maneuver. And so if there is a time when the vehicle, for whatever reason, cannot perform the driving task, then it is able to safely take itself out of commission. This is something that is very core and fundamental to autonomous driving systems. The second thing is that within these vehicles, these are obviously very highly sophisticated. There is a series of redundancies that are built in so that when you do have challenges, you can overcome those.
All right, when it takes it out of service, how does it do that?
It's obviously a company-specific issue, but at the same time, from a general proposition, oftentimes what you see is that the vehicle allows itself to move off to the side of the road and send a signal that it is out of commission.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Gentlemen, we thank you, and we will move on. And we have, looks like we have 6 people signed up to speak. And as I said in the beginning, we're going to do 20 minutes and 20 minutes on the speaking parts. First up is Dustin Reinstedler. As I mentioned, please be aware that you have a number of people behind you ready to speak. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity.
Let's make sure your green buttons are pushed on the microphones. That way we can all hear you.
Okay.
Please state your names for the record, and then you may proceed.
All right. Dustin Reinstedler, President, Kentucky State AFL-CIO. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'll let the people I brought with me introduce themselves.
Thank you. I'm James Brandt, President of Teamster Local 651, 30-year employee at UPS before I was elected to this job, CDL holder, and my whole career, I'm proud to say I had all safe driving on the highway, 0 accidents. So I think I can answer some questions for you that there were some holes in what these gentlemen just told you.
Hello. My name is Lillian Brentz. I am the President Business Agent of Amalgamated Transit Union. I represent the employees of the public and private transit system in Louisville, Kentucky, TARC. And so I can also answer some questions in reference to driving. I am a 16-year CDL holder. I was a former driver before I assumed this position.
Okay, you all may proceed.
Thank you.
Got 2 more, actually. Ryan?
Okay.
Ryan Straw, Vice President and Governmental Affairs Director for the State Fraternal Order of Police.
Okay.
And Michelle?
Michelle Grubbs, on behalf of the Truck Safety Coalition. I'm a truck crash victim volunteer.
Thank you all.
Thank you. We appreciate the efforts to address our concerns about House Bill 7, but we do not support the committee sub as it contains language that we did not agree to, nor do we think it would be a reasonable approach to protecting public safety and jobs. After considerable back and forth, we reluctantly agreed on the 2-year implementation language, but we did not agree nor discuss the weight exemptions of vehicles below 62,000 pounds, which would include vehicles such as buses, box trucks, delivery vans, and a wide variety of other commercial vehicles. We feel the more prudent and reasonable approach is to include all commercial vehicles within the 2-year period. We look forward to working on a floor amendment which addresses our concerns. Further, we do support HCR 36, which establishes the Autonomous Vehicle Task Force to undertake a comprehensive study on the effects of the introduction of autonomous vehicles on our roads and the jobs of over 50,000 workers. And I'll turn it over to JB here.
Thank you. Again, my name is James Brand. I'm the president of Teamster Local 651. I'm a 30-year Teamster. I have 25 years of safe driving, holding a CDL for UPS. And to give you an idea of what I do, you see the double trailers going down the road, or what I did, the double trailers being pulled down the road. I've seen a lot over my career, and there was a lot of questions that were brought up to the gentleman before us that I don't think they've properly answered, that I can answer because I had in real situations. And you brought up a lot of questions, and like I said, I'll just start off and say a couple things, and I'm happy to answer anything. 60,000 pounds is what a truck weighs. We're not talking about a little car. 60,000 pounds is a lot of weight, and you're going down the highway. Safety is should be top priority. Families deserve to know that in these trucks that you have a driver, a human, that is going to make decisions when malfunctions occur going up and down the highway. And I can tell you, in my career, malfunctions happen every day. The gentlemen before us were giving you perfect scenarios. When things happen, picture perfect world. And let me tell you, when you're driving a truck down the highway, that's the last thing that happens every day. You can have breakdowns on the highway. I'm going to give you an example of a situation that I was in. Pulling a set of doubles. I've seen it. It's happened to me, and I've seen it happen to other truck drivers. You can go over a hill, be broke down at the top of the hill just going over, and cars are not going to see you till they get to the top of the hill, and they're going 70 miles an hour, and they don't have time to stop. You're going to have a pile up. What a human can do to fix that problem is they, first of all, can get the vehicle off the road. There are malfunctions with a driverless truck sometimes can't do that. You have flashers, the cones you can put out and stuff like that. That gives people extra time to react. There was a question brought up from someone from southeastern Kentucky about UPS package cars. I think that was the gentleman there. I can answer a question real quick on that. UPS package car drivers go up in the heads of these haulers all the time, all right? And by far, is it perfect? These things can get stuck. These things can slide. These things can cause accidents and put numerous people in harm's way when that happens. There are numerous things that can happen here. The unexpected happens every day. Emergency situations, we have to have a driver, or a human, in these trucks to react to this. I can give you an example. I just got back from Grand Rapids, Michigan about 11:30 last night. We had some UPS Teamster JAC hearings, and we had a case that involved tractors where you have drivers, but you have technology that's happening, and the technology won't allow drivers to downshift. Okay, this is an example with a human, and so I can only imagine without a human. If you can't downshift, and this is what autonomous trucks would do, it's going to do what the computer's telling them to do, and they're not in-life situations. If you're on bad roads and you start going down a mountain in southeastern Kentucky, and you're on snow, you're on ice, and you can't downshift that truck, that autonomous truck can't do that. It's going to tell you to do that in a perfect situation. And if you have 60,000 pounds pushing you down that mountain, and it says, well, I should downshift here. Well, that's the last thing you want to do is have your RPMs high where it's going to make your trailers come around. And you know, when that happens, you're going to hit a family. Okay, and you need to ask yourself, families going down the road. How many people growing up seen kids going like this? You know, all these folks are trusting you all because you make these laws, and they know they know autonomous trucks are coming, but they're trusting you all to make the right decision and put it in your hands to trust that you're going to have a human in there to make these decisions when the unexpected arise, and the unexpected arise every day. And you have to protect families and people going down the road from this. We don't need to worry about the bottom line of corporations because that's what this is about, and this is going to eliminate jobs for sure. Now, I can sit here and talk forever, but I do have in-life experiences, and I'm happy to answer anything anybody has when the time comes. So thank you.
Thanks, man. You want to let Ryan move on?
Yes.
Hello. I'm up next, again, Lillian Brents of ATU Local 1447, represent the public and private transit workers in Louisville. I heard a lot of testimonies today referred to truck drivers. Just so we have a clear understanding what 62,000 pounds look like, the buses that transports Representative Lawrence, I heard you say your son is here today. He will be on one of those school buses if this HB 7 is passed, operated by autonomous vehicles. We strongly urge that the committee amends House Bill 7 to assure that the commercial motor vehicles are required to have a proper licensed operator on board. One of the other things to think about, again, I represent the people that utilize this service when they don't have their vehicles. So a school bus holds about 65 kids. A transit bus holds about 45 adults. A paratransit vehicle holds up to 10 disabled Americans, whether they're blind or they have trouble walking, but they need assistance. So when passing this bill, I want y'all all to recognize that our vehicles fall up under that criteria. And so we strongly urge that you amend the bill to where it's not only a human driver, but work with the people that are in transit to make sure the bill covers and it's safe to be on there. We understand that, we being in Kentucky, that we want autonomous vehicles here just to be ahead of technology or to be a part of the technology curve. But please take in consideration that those commercial vehicle drivers on board operate the license of the vehicle. The committee, House Bill 7, creates a arbitrary weight limit of 62,000 pounds to require a AV driver must be lifted in order to put this bill safe. So we urge that you amend this bill. Also, just keeping in perspective that we heard from the trucking standpoint, we heard on the highways. Imagine driving in your neighborhood, taking your kids to school. Imagine you was in a car accident and you're now disabled and you rely on that service on a day-to-day basis to where you would need the public transit or even the private transit to get you to and from your doctor's appointments. Now, the city streets traffic conditions change a lot more quicker than they would on the highway, meaning a pedestrian in a crosswalk in which an autonomous vehicle would not recognize. Also, when schools are in loading and unloading and a bus is in front of them or on that bus, they don't recognize the signs. These are everyday concerns that exist today. So take that in consideration. And we all, mothers, daughters, fathers, sons, grandparents in here. Imagine being on the highway next to an autonomous vehicle where you could be seen or you could not. But this is Kentucky, and those weather conditions change rapidly. And so while we are allowing our kids to visit the Capitol today, take their safety. You have an opportunity to chance to assure the safety of your son and my kids' safety by amending this HB 7.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I just want to remind you, we have about 2 or 3 more people speak after you, and we've got about 8 minutes, so.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and everyone present today for holding this important hearing and allowing me a moment. Again, my name is Michelle Grubbs, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Truck Safety Coalition. I've been an active victim volunteer with the Truck Safety Coalition since 2001. My 26-year-old son, along with his fiance, her mother's boyfriend, and her 14-year-old cousin were all killed in a semi versus passenger vehicle crash in Paducah, Kentucky, again on August the 2nd of 2021. The truck driver ran a red light, hitting them broadside on a Monday at 12:11 p.m. on a clear day, and 5 lives were lost in just a mere moment from the impact of that crash. I'm here today to give a statement on behalf of the Truck Safety Coalition, but to also give you a human factor on what the effects can be from truck safety crashes. The Truck Safety Coalition has been fighting for proven common sense safety reforms since their founding. Tested and proven safety tech exists, but is still not yet widely adopted. Examples include the intelligent speed adapters, automatic emergency braking, and automated driver assistance systems such as blind spot monitoring and lane assist. These technologies and others have been proven to save lives, but are still yet underutilized on large trucks. Most people are unaware. The large truck crash deaths have surged nearly 90% since 2014. And I'm here today because my son and his future family are part of that statistic. Proven and safe solutions are needed in this time of crisis. And at this time, I don't feel we should be recklessly testing autonomous vehicles and trucks next to unsuspecting Kentucky motorists. On behalf of the Truck Safety Coalition, I'm asking that you oppose House Bill 7 at this time. The large truck automated driving systems, or ADs, have no state or federal performance regulation. AV manufacturers have lacked transparency, repeatedly telling lawmakers that disengagement and testing data are proprietary, despite these elements being necessary to understand and evaluate progress and performance. Cruise was less than forthcoming in informing regulators appropriately, even after one of its AV vehicles dragged a pedestrian over 20 feet. Citizens and emergency responders have been infuriated by the obstruction, havoc, and danger that AV taxis have caused in San Francisco, California. These recent events don't inspire confidence at this time to unleash nearly 80,000 driverless trucks on the highways. We're asking that further research and safe testing to be required for these AV trucks. When left unregulated, the autonomous vehicles threaten human life. Consider an example of the AV trucking company, Too Simple. Its AV truck malfunctioned without warning, and the truck turned sharply toward a guardrail. Luckily, in this instance, there wasn't another vehicle beside it, but had there been, more lives may have been lost. There was a human safety operator there and had to make decisive action to avert catastrophe during that instance. We're asking not to have Kentuckians be guinea pigs with this driverless experiment until more research can be conducted to prove what the safety factors can be for these AV vehicles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Straw.
I have a very quick one.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and members of the committee, good morning. My name is Ryan Straw, Vice President, Governmental Affairs Director for the Fraternal Order of Police. I may not have been on your testimony bingo card this morning, but I wanted to come in and just say we are not, as the FOP, who represents 11,000 rank and file law enforcement officers across the Commonwealth, and as a member organization of the National FOP, who represents almost 350,000 law enforcement professionals across the country. We are not for or against this. We recognize that this is coming. We are in support of technology that moves things forward. However, we do share a lot of the concerns that are coming out today, and we just caution everyone to look at the bigger impact that this is going to have on the law enforcement community. I look up here at this committee. We have a lot of friends up here who are talking with us daily about the issues that are going on with law enforcement and the things that we face. And I can tell you that continuing to add things like this already into just a bag of things that we're already short on and having to deal with is going to make our jobs harder. But again, we sign up to do that, and so we will do it if that's the case. But I ask that you look at some of the recommendations that that are being made. I was excited to hear that Representative Blanton had proposed a task force and was looking into that. And again, he is by far one of the authority on these things. He can speak to what we need and how we feel out there as well. But I do caution you that the national FOP has been working with organizations in Washington, D.C. on this topic. They have been partners in that. The FOP, of course, has to be partners here in Kentucky on this issue as well. But what they've run into, especially in our western states, is that some of the things that have been implemented, they've moved just a little bit too fast. And what has happened is there have been some glaring holes that law enforcement may have been able to shore up a little bit before they would have been put out there. And so I ask that you at least consider that when you're looking at it. But again, I can't reiterate this enough. This is not about being for or against the bill. This is just reminding everyone that we do have some facts, and we have seen some cases where law enforcement has run into problems with this, anywhere from vehicles malfunctioning. We've seen that before. We have a couple cases in Nevada and California right now that have been really newsworthy. Again, anyone can Google this, but where they've been used in sex trafficking and other things like that. Again, these are extremely egregious and really could be one-off issues. But again, these are things that I hope our colleagues here in the legislature and our friends will at least consider as we're going through this, because we want to keep our Commonwealth safe. You have the best law enforcement in the country here, and so we want to do everything we can to move Kentucky forward, but be a good partner in that as well. So please, just when you're looking through this, know that law enforcement is here to be a partner in it, but we do see some issues, and so we share that as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Had one more person to sign up, and they're with Teamsters Local 651. I think they've already spoke, but Crystal. And we have probably about a couple minutes, so.
I'm not going to take long.
Please state your name for the record if you don't care.
My name is Crystal McLeod. I am with Teamsters Local 651. Okay. I am a 9-year driver with UPS. I drive the package cars, the little box trucks that deliver every day. I've been studying up on this for quite some time. I've tried to keep up with the technology and as it's being rolled